There were a number of opportunities, virtually limitless, where Donald Trump could have pretended that he cared about the pandemic, that he could have actually led, not just in terms of doing something, but providing an example that many of his adoring fans could have gone by. Masking, social distancing, not joking about the entire thing, not thinking it's just an opportunity to make racist jokes, all of that. But I think one of the most important opportunities, although late in the pandemic, was when he himself got sick with COVID. For many of us outsiders, it seemed like sort of karma finally hitting. It was the inevitable outcome of his careless attitude towards the pandemic. And now we're finding out that it was actually worse than we thought. He was sicker with COVID-19 in October than had publicly been acknowledged at the time, with extremely depressed blood oxygen levels at one point and a lung problem associated with pneumonia caused by the coronavirus. His prognosis became so worrisome before he was taken to Walter Reed that officials believed he would need to be put on a ventilator, which is obviously that is a terrible point in someone's battle with COVID. People familiar with his health said that he was found to have lung infiltrates, which occur when the lungs are inflamed and contain substances such as fluid or bacteria. Their presence, especially when a patient is exhibiting other symptoms, can be a sign of an acute case of the disease. Another bad sign was his blood oxygen level, which dipped into the 80s. The disease is considered severe when the blood oxygen level falls to the low 90s. Now, he was hit by this, and not in a casual way. He was hit hard. And in theory, it was a chance for him to reevaluate the way he had been presenting himself with the disease, how serious it is. But he cared more about his public image, and that was what won out. The former president resisted being taken from the White House to Walter Reed, relenting when aides told him that he could walk out on his own or risk waiting until the US Secret Service was forced to carry him out if he got sicker. So he was willing to risk getting sicker until he was told, "You'll look bad if that happens." And they lied about all of this, by the way. Throughout, they said that he was working hard, which isn't even true when he isn't sick. They tried to hide all of this throughout when it was an opportunity to show people how serious this is. This is a country that is filled with millions and millions of people who have a varying spectrum of the disease literally doesn't exist beliefs, to it's being trumped up and people have other stuff, but they're calling it COVID, or sure, you can get it, but it's not that bad, it's just the flu. Him actually coming clean with the American people could have gotten through to some of those people, if anything was going to. And instead, he chose to pretend that he's some sort of hero, that it wasn't really affecting him. It wouldn't change his behavior, nor should it change yours. We always say Republicans only learn when something hits them close to home. But he has proven that not even that is true for some Republicans. For him, even hitting inside of his own lungs wasn't enough for him to change his behavior. And there you're seeing what happened immediately after he left, that what seemed at the time to be a death gasp that he was letting out.
Yeah, so it's so perfect, really, because Trump is that guy. Trump is that guy who only cares about appearances. He has the whole hair thing that is his defining characteristic. Every building he has to be gold plated. He started an airline where he bought really crappy planes, but wanted gold toilets essentially in them, and that weighed down the planes, so they were more at risk for crashing. And that same theme played out through this. And the idea that there was a worse alternative optics-wise than him slowly walking out of the White House, where they have a clinic, and being airlifted to Walter Reed Medical Center. The fact, we all kind of felt it. We're like, and we reported on it at the time on the Young Turks, which was basically to say, it is really bad. It is really bad, and we're all thinking, what if he dies? We wouldn't have thought that if it was like with Leahy. They were like, they took Leahy to the hospital, and then he was back on his feet in like a few days. But Trump 100% got airlifted to a private wing of the medical center.
Yep.
And then they, as you say, they had those photos of him like, I'm doing work, I'm really okay.
Like an empty desk. And then remember, he exposed Secret Service officers so that he could ride in a car and wave feebly at some of his fans to pretend that it wasn't serious. That was what he was doing, was pretending it's not a disease that you actually have to care about. While also, and we made the point, you just made the point, that he gets to be airlifted to a private hospital where he'll have Dr. House and their entire team operating on him. Other people don't get that. Other politicians don't even get that. Republican representative died of COVID. Not everybody gets that. Like we have the concept of Dr. Johnny Bananas to point this out, that sure, for some, the most rich, the most politically connected, they can, we're not gonna go in depth into it, but he got treatments that hadn't even yet been approved by the FDA because he's the president and because he's rich and because he's powerful. But other people don't get that. It could have been an opportunity for him to come to grips with that. I get this thing, other people don't. Other people in my same situation would have died. But I will learn nothing from that. I will try to ensure that other people learn nothing from this. And that resulted in really horrendous behavior. And by the way, not for nothing, that was October. So what happened in Thanksgiving? And what happened in Christmas? A country that had been gradually led to believe that this wasn't something you had to worry about anymore, went and partied and traveled and hung out with their families. And that's how we got to a point where we're losing between 3,000 and 4,000 people a day. It wasn't nearly as bad back in October. Maybe if he had taken this really seriously and had really tried to drill into the right, into his MAGA fans, that this is something serious. I know it was in me, I had the infiltrates. I don't want anyone else to experience this. Maybe Thanksgiving wouldn't have gone the way it did, and maybe Christmas wouldn't have gone the way it did, and maybe we'd be sitting at 300,000 deaths instead of 470.
And from just like a purely observational standpoint, it is one of those. So when you think about it from a philosophical standpoint, almost, he is an ego fundamentalist. Like that, he is a fundamentalist, and it's all about ego. And you always wondered, like. And there's a lot of presidents who folks have criticized because they didn't go hard enough in the paint for certain things. And Trump is that guy who never once really backed down, issued an apology, walked something back. And you wonder, what would that do to the country? And we watched it happen in the pre-COVID times. And the answer was, it just got louder and more people watched the news. But when a real crisis faced the country, it proved that we were right saying that folks kind of need to have some level of decency and some other priority besides themselves, something larger than themselves, some kind of prioritization of American values, democratic values, institutional values. And he just, in the time when it was challenged the most, he failed that challenge at every level, every step of the way. And he told people to inject themselves with bleach because he didn't care enough about anyone else to even moderately consider input from someone beside like the weird voice on his shoulder, essentially.
Yeah.
And we got to see that. And to our credit as a country, Americans said, we're not gonna give you the keys for another 4 years.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's what we got. And almost certainly, like, if he, again, not if he had really nailed this thing, he'd done exactly what I would have wanted, but if he had pretended a little bit, if he had literally just said every once in a while, yeah, you should wear a mask, because it's a deadly disease, then he'd still be president. The Republicans would still have the Senate.
No, I disagree.
It did matter. You don't think that would have?
He would have won, and I totally get your point, but so much of that ship had sailed. He already laid so much of the foundation. And along the way, he did say stuff like, be peaceful. It was always too late. It was there's some bad people in that group, but he also said there are very fine people on both sides.
Yeah.
Like he had already, it's just a new brand of dog whistle that you can hear every tone. It's just that your brain can't handle hearing every tone, that we start tuning out some part of it. And I've used every metaphor along the way of it, just like your justice butthole that he keeps stretching out where you can't even feel when you're getting violated. The fart smell.
You used a lot of metaphors. I would keep looking. Because anyone has got to be better than that.
Yeah, we've gone nose blind.
We've gone nose blind. Okay.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.